So we're here again. A lot sooner than I expected, to be honestly. But yeah, we're back. Atlanta United reviews. Been a while. But also, feels like it hasn't been a while. Feels like I just stopped doing them. But yeah, so go ahead and kind of address that. For anybody who doesn't know, I had kind of made an agreement with myself that I didn't really want to talk about Atlanta United, at least on this level, as far as analyzing the games. And a lot of it just came down to, one, I wasn't really interested in watching anymore, and two, the breakdowns were becoming very samey because essentially my complaints were always the same. Because under DeBoer, we had the same issues over and over and over and over again. And then once we finally got rid of him, I was hoping things would change, and then they didn't. They brought in, I think he was like the youth coach for the Atlanta United, like Atlanta United 2, I think. They brought him in, and then we ended up not even in the playoffs. So clearly last year was a fluke of a year, in more ways than one. But I did know that we got a new coach, and I honestly haven't really been keeping up with all the transfers that we've been doing. And a lot of that is just down to I can't really follow Atlanta United on social media anymore because frankly, they want to use their social media more as a platform to push a political agenda most of the time than they are actually talking about soccer stuff. And it just gets old after a while because I don't want to tune in to a soccer page and constantly be reminded of the political divide in our country. So yeah, I haven't really been following them on social media, so I haven't really been keeping up with everybody that we've been getting. I don't know much about the players that we brought in. Obviously, saw a few tonight, but yeah, I just watching the game. I knew I wanted to talk about it because it feels like there's obviously still some room to grow, and it's the first game under the new coach, so of course there's going to be room to grow. And on top of that, we're still early on in the season. Just finished our preseason facing a team that's in the middle of their season, and it's an away game all the way in, I think, Costa Rica. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff going against us, and we come out with a win when we were a man down for half the game. So, yeah, in my opinion, the result is obviously very good, but more than anything, the desire to fight and the desire to win the ball, the desire to play was there. You know, the technical stuff hopefully will come in time. The tactical stuff, hopefully the coach will get down pat as the season goes on, and hopefully it's not going to be, I guess, as lackluster in the final third as we saw today. But, I mean, overall, I was very pleased with the play itself and how good we looked. So, first of all, talk about the red card. Obviously, it was deserved, and it came from what was a long string of just balls that got in behind our defense and we didn't react quick enough. And this was one where the striker was quicker than our defense. Most of the time we were able to kind of get back there and put them off enough to where they couldn't do anything with it. But this time we kind of just said, oh, okay, so Guzan's got it right. And then he wasn't out quick enough, and then he takes down the guy. And ironically enough, if it had been in the box, it would have been a yellow, but because it wasn't in the box, it ended up being a red. So kind of unfortunate there. But, you know, new kid, 18 years old, Rios Novo. I'm honestly not even going to lie. I have a cheat sheet right here with some of the names because I'm probably going to forget. Some of them I just don't remember. But he had to come in because of that. And from then on, you know, it was mostly the other team. I am going to butcher the name if I try to say it. So I'm just going to call them the other team for this review. But they really took control of the second half. And even though we did get the goal early on, it was mainly their attack. And we would occasionally get the counterattack on them. But for the most part, they did control the rest of the game. But we held up solidly enough defensively. And the kid did a great job in keeper. So, yeah, coming out with a win is great. The penalty, I'll also address that real quick. Probably not. It was kind of hard watching on my phone, and the picture was a little blurry. It was hard to tell like exactly where the ball hit him. Like none of the angles really showed me where it hit him, like if it did get him in the arm or not. But I think that's kind of that's why it ended up being given, because he comes flying in and his arm's up here. So even if it did get him in the face like he was claiming, it's difficult for the referee because he doesn't have a good angle of it. The assistant referee doesn't have a good angle of it, and your arm's up here, and even if it hits you here and goes out, like you can kind of see how the referee made the mistake. Like it's hard to blame the referee. Obviously, he got it wrong if that is the case, but that is a problem. I will say the referee was frustrating at times. Even though I do think it was a red card for Guzan, the fact that he originally pulled out the yellow, and then after all the players surrounded him and got in his ear, all of a sudden he's like, okay, yeah, it's a red. It's like, you let them talk you into it. Like, you make the decision for yourself. You don't let them influence your decision, because the same thing happened whenever he called the penalty. He calls it, and then all the players surround him again, and he pushes him away. He's like, hang on, let me talk to the AR real quick. Like he's about to reverse his decision just because they yelled at him. I'm like, dude, no, that's not how referees work. You make your decision whether it's right or wrong, and then if they want to complain, you say, hey, I'm the referee. I make the decision. So it was a poor referee game on both sides, honestly. At least he was consistently bad. But yeah, it was kind of frustrating to watch at times whenever he was going. But as far as our general play is concerned, the good parts of it is the energy was good. You know, we were working hard, a lot of, running, a lot of sprinting. Didn't see a whole lot of players just kind of trotting around the field, which is good to see, especially when you go man down. You know, the last thing you want to see is several of your players just trotting around, because then you'll end up losing like 5-2, I just pulled that score out of nowhere. It has nothing to do with the Chelsea game this weekend. But yeah, so the energy that we showed after the red card was really, really good. In the attack, the movement for the most part was okay. The ball movement, the player movement was not great. And I feel like that's why a lot of the time we would get the ball down the field and then it would kind of go into nothing because there wasn't enough movement from the players up top. It felt like our attack was very disjointed. So there were times when it felt like there were no options for the player on the ball because that guy's standing behind a defender, that guy's just standing in between two defenders, and I don't know, it didn't feel like we were really connecting when we got into the final third. But as far as keeping possession, we did that okay. Definitely some slip-ups here and there, but the fact that we're already moving the ball around pretty well very early on is a good sign because we'll continue to grow as the season progresses. The biggest concern for me, though, right now is just the lack of organization in the back. It feels like nobody really knows who to track, and I feel like that comes from a lack of a leader back there, and honestly, it's understandable because you've got three young defenders. Sosa's kind of a defensive mid stopper, kind of drops back into the three type of thing. But he's 21, and then I had to look up all the ages because I'm like, how young are these kids? And most of them are like early 20s or teenagers. But Robinson and Walks are both 24, Sosa's 21. So it's a very young back line, and there's no real leadership back there. And you could tell there were moments where ball gets played through, and nobody knows who's tracking the man. The guy makes a run past Sosa, but Sosa doesn't want to go with him because he needs to stay central. So then he gets in behind Walks, and now we're having to run back and we're having to scramble to get ourselves back into position. So it just caused a lot of issues, and especially late on when the legs started to go, you could see there was just such a disorganized feel about how we were defending, and it created a lot of opportunities for them at the end. So I hope that we can work on that defensive organization a little bit. Part of that I do think is not helped by the fact that we don't really have a defensive mid in there. You think about like your Lorenowitz or your Rometty. Who was the guy in the first season? Was it Carmona? Is that his name? I think that was it. But those guys that can break up the play, I didn't really see that a whole lot from Ibarra. He did a couple times. Heinemann is much more of an attack-minded midfielder, so I feel like we need somebody in that center of the midfield that's going to work back and is going to break up the play in front of our defense. That way they can focus on tracking their runners and making sure they know what they're doing. So it didn't really feel organized defensively, and there were several chances created because of that. Luckily, we managed to see out of play. But yeah, that's about it for the overall feel of the game, our play. As far as the lineup, I mean, I don't know anything about these players yet, so you could put out whatever lineup you wanted, and I'd be like, sure, coach, whatever you say. But individuals, so Guzan, obviously he's still the number one. The red card, it's unfortunate for him. It's kind of a lack of communication. Not a great ball back to him. All of it didn't work in his favor, and the fact that he is a bit older means he's not gonna beat the striker there. So you kind of see why he got beat. I don't really blame him for it though, because I do feel like he wasn't put in a good position from the rest of his team. So he's still just so sure with his hands. Anytime a shot came in, I wasn't feeling like, oh no. Like, he's just very confident, and he's still very good at what he does. Whereas with, the 18-year-old that went in, obviously, besides the fact that he's a kid, there are moments when you could see, like, the confidence wasn't quite there. It would turn into a parry rather than a catch, and even his catches, he would kind of bobble it a little bit. So just watching Guzan's safe hands makes me feel confident whenever he's in goal. So, but I thought his first half was solid, showing that he can still do it. The back three. So I'll start with Sosa. Again, I don't really know exactly what his role is in the team. It was hard to really pick out whether he was supposed to be kind of what Lorinowitz did for Tata in the first season, where he's a defensive mid, but whenever we have possession, he drops into the center of a back three, and he kind of becomes the link-up play there. But there were times when it seemed like he was staying back, and that was our back three, and that was it. So it's kind of hard to tell what he's doing right now, but the strength that he showed with his passing gets me excited to see what else he can do. Defensively, had some good moments, had some bad moments. A couple times where it felt like he was diving in too easily, and then there were some times where he worked very well and got goal side, wins the ball from the striker. So he did a little bit of everything on both sides of the scale, good and bad. So hopefully see more from him going forward. Walks and Robinson, honestly, kind of felt the same as far as their game today. Like, they had some really good moments. They had some great blocks. They had some good defensive challenges. But then also there were moments that they turned off and they were lost and they were in the wrong position. They're diving in. So both of them had good moments and had some bad moments, and it's just kind of up and down. But, early days. And we've seen both of them, I think, have shown that they can be good, solid defenders. Robinson more than Walks, in my opinion. But I feel like these are kind of early figuring out how to play together, figuring out who's going to track who's going to go when. But I hope one of them can at least start to show a little bit of leadership and a little bit of organization skills in the back, because it was definitely from somebody who was a defender, it was frustrating to watch because I'm like, nobody is tracking that guy. What are we doing? The wingbacks, Bello and Lennon. So still not a huge fan of Lennon. He's an average player. He does his job okay. He does everything very averagely, which I guess is okay. But again, I've said this before in past reviews. I'm not somebody who's a big fan of the MLS. So whenever I see we have MLS talent out there, kind of a little frustrating. I feel like we should be better than the MLS. We should be pushing the league to, pushing the standard in the league up. And Brooks Lennon is just a standard MLS player. He'll do his job fine. Not a whole lot of huge talent on the ball, but he works hard. He's got good speed and good aggression. That's an MLS player to me. So, and Bello showed a few bright flashes here and there, but still looks young, still looks very small. Honestly, I felt like one of the strengths that he had when I first started watching him play was his speed, but tonight he didn't look fast compared to these guys. So I don't know if his speed was just over-exaggerated when I first started watching, or if, because I know he was dealing with an injury for a while, maybe that kind of slowed him up and he's not willing to really push himself to that speed anymore. But I felt like he definitely has a lot more to show. But both of them just kind of out there. They had a couple good moments, but not really anything to maybe go, oh, yes, this is what we need. Like, I feel like if we have better options, we need to try to see what else we can do. In the middle, though, Ibarra and Heinemann. Like I said, I was watching on my phone. It's very blurry. Honestly, they both looked very similar to me. So until like they did a close up, I couldn't tell from a distance who was who. But they both seemed to do their job well enough. Heinemann very good about picking the ball deep and making something happen with it. He's good at going with speed. He's good at taking on players. And Ibarra seemed like a decent defensive midfielder. I don't think he's quite the same level of defending that we saw from like Remedi. So I don't know if he's going to be that type of player. But as far as like being a defensive midfielder that's willing to work back and try to win the ball and is also willing to pick it up from deep and try to make something happen, he seemed to do all of that decently enough. So both of them, they did okay. I feel like the main focus of the other team's attack was not through the middle, so they weren't really called upon to be very defensive. Most of the time they were going wide and then working it in from deep. So they weren't really challenged a whole lot, is what I'm trying to say. But then as far as the front three, Barco on the left and Mulroney on the right, so that way they can cut in and take shots, I'm guessing, because Mulroney's left-footed and Barco's right-footed. But both of them played well enough. Mulroney was the one that got subbed off whenever Guzan got the red. And it's been an interesting relationship that I've had with Mulroney because I remember watching him some of the early games before the lockdown. And I remember thinking, okay, he's got some talent, quick feet, good to see. But then when the MLS's back tournament hit and I watched him play, and especially that one game that he got sent off in like 5 minutes, I remember thinking, God, I never want to see him play for us again. He's awful. What did I see in him? But I will say, watching him today, definitely can see some of that flair that I saw early on, and he brought a decent amount of attack for us. Like, there were moments when he's taking on defenders and he's trying to make something happen in the final third. Not really something that a whole lot of the rest of the team did. So good to see that we've got that Mulroney back that's willing to take on defenders and try to make something happen, because he was not that way in the MLS's back tournament at all. And then Barco, solid from the right, from the left side. Want to see a bit more from him, because I feel like he's got all this talent and he's showing it at times. I want to see it a bit more consistently. I don't want it to be like, oh, he had a good flash here and then 20 minutes later another good flash. I want it to be he's having good flashes that's constantly putting the other team under pressure, because I want the other team to feel like we have to keep an eye on him at all times. Not, okay, keep an eye on him. If he starts to do some stuff on the ball, put a good challenge in, but we don't have to worry about him too much. And I feel like that's kind of been his issue, is just that hot and cold. But what he did really well tonight was just that ability to get the ball and make the other team have to push back, make them have to work back, especially when you're down a man. You want the other team to have to get back onto their side of the field, because if they're leaving all their guys forward and they're not having to really step back as much, it traps you in and you have to sit there and just constantly defend. So he was very vital later on in the game. Once we started to kind of push a little bit more, he was one of the players that was vital in helping us do that. We get the ball to him, he'd take it down the line, the defenders now have to track back, the rest of the team is having to track back too, because you've got Joseph Martinez on the field now. So yeah, I liked some of what I saw from him, but I would like to see a little bit more as the season progresses. And then finally, I forget his first name. I think it's Lissandro, but Lopez is the final player that started. And I didn't know much about him. When I looked up his age, I found out he was 38, so that's interesting. And yeah, I could kind of tell he was a little bit older, just the way he was playing. He wasn't moving that quickly. I don't know. I didn't see a whole lot from him. It felt like we needed a striker who was going to make things happen in the box, and he wasn't doing it. And obviously you don't want to risk Martinez after such a horrible injury. So I get the idea of not starting him, but I do feel like, don't we have better options than this? Like, is this really our best option? And if it is, then I'm a little concerned going forward into the season. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if he can provide anything today. I just didn't see much from him. It felt like the lack of movement was coming from him mostly, and obviously being a sole striker is going to be hard, but at least make the defense have to adjust for you. And I don't think he was really giving us enough of that. I felt like the defense was able to sort of just keep an eye on him. You don't have to do too much. You just sort of watch him. If he goes over there, well then now you take him. So, and with that being said, I will also say I don't think he was helped by the fact that Mulroney and Barco were generally staying wider. I feel like if your fullbacks are going to provide the width, I think they can step in a little bit more central. Now, Mulroney and Lennon were working pretty in tandem on the right side, so I understand why he was staying wider. But it felt like there were times that we get the ball out there, and Barco's still hanging out wide, as is Bello. And I'm thinking, one of you two needs to make a run into the box right now just to make the defense have to adjust for you. And it never really felt like we got to that point. It always felt like it was just Lopez kind of hanging out front side of the box, and then the cross would go in, and nobody's there to meet it. So I just feel like, I don't know if it's just Lopez that's causing the issue or if it's just a lack of connectivity from the front three entirely. But Lopez definitely looked the worst because of that. And I don't know if that's just unfortunate for him or not. But as far as the subs that came on, I already talked a little bit about Novo? Was that his name? It was. Rios Novo. I already talked a little bit about him, but yeah, he came on, and obviously he looks young. He's still... There are moments when you can tell he's not as confident as Guzan, but I mean, came on, made some great last-ditch saves to keep us in the game, to keep us from giving up our clean sheet. I mean, they weren't extremely difficult saves. It's not like they put him all the way over there and he had to stretch to get across, but the fact that he's coming out and he's big and he's confident enough to really step out and make the save, it's good to see. You know, I don't know where Alec Khan is. Khan, I don't know how to pronounce it anymore. I don't know if he's just kind of out of the team now, or, I mean, it wasn't on the bench. I don't know if this kid's supposed to be better. I haven't heard about any of that. But the fact that, 18 years old and he comes on, plays a full half, and doesn't give up a goal and makes some good saves, good to see. The only thing I worry about for him is just, that age and the confidence. Want to see him grow, hopefully. Because I would love to see, a young keeper start to show what he can do and coming through the ranks for several years to come. And then Martinez came on for Lopez later on, and had a couple moments where, the old Joseph started to pop back up. He's challenging the defender in the air. He's trying to make things happen up top. But I don't think this was a great game to reintroduce him, mainly because you're a man down, so you're not really getting up the field as much. So maybe it's just to give him a run out, but I don't think he was quite the right answer to this game. I don't know exactly who else you'd put up there, but I just, watching him play, I'm thinking this is not his game right now. They're sitting very high, which means, he's got to hope to get in behind, but the problem is they got quick defenders, so they're not going to let him get in behind, and we're not really getting the ball to him. We're just kind of clearing it and hoping for the best. So he was kind of hurt by that today, and then Campbell came on, kind of a last-minute change. Didn't really see much from him, but all in all, I mean, it's the first professional game of the season. It was a win. It's on the road. Obviously, we're going to have to deal with the fact that Guzan's not available for the second leg, but, I mean, the kid did well in goal. So if that's the only problem we have, I feel like we've got a good bit of confidence going into it. It's going to be at home, probably at, what's it called, Fifth Third Bank Stadium, the Kennesaw State field, which means it's going to be a field we know. It's going to be a bit tighter as well, and I feel like that will help us a little bit, because this field felt very big just looking at it. So maybe the tighter spaces will allow for us to play a bit quicker. We won't have to go as long. We won't have to, make as many up and down runs, which helps whenever a team is so early on in their season, not having to sprint as much. So we'll see what happens, but I'm feeling pretty confident after this win. Like, I'm feeling much more confident than I did probably a few weeks ago whenever we were about to get started. But all in all, that's it for me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Atlanta United reviews. And I will see you guys in the next game. Peace out.